just sort of document reassembling it. I've got LED lighting over the top of the bench, and it's the PMW, the 60 hertz is real close to what I'm filming at. And so I'm sort of struggling with that. It doesn't seem to matter if I put it on 30 or 24. It just doesn't seem to go away. So we'll see if we can make sure that doesn't get into the video, but we'll go ahead and get going on this. It's just a really tight fit with all the windings, and maybe a little bit about the fiberglass. So there's like a fiberglass paper liner that runs around the outside that has to be high heat, I believe, and so I used gasket maker, high temp gasket maker, to get it to stick to the rim, and I let it set up overnight. So it's stuck in there fine. It's just extremely tight fit with the windings and the main wires coming off the windings. So I'm just trying to get it to fit and make sure I'm not pinching anything down or breaking anything. So this is the fiberglass tape here. So when I was a kid, in the 80s, I thought that painted bolts were cool. The other reason for doing it is they're completely unavailable. They're special heads. They're normal size, but the head, I would have had to have them either manufactured, or I would have had to have turned my own. I don't have a lathe, so can't do that, and the red actually looks pretty cool. So we'll talk a little more about that in a little bit. There's a special size on here. We'll also talk about that for the bell ends. It's quarter 24. It's called an antique thread size, and you can't get bolts for it. So I gotta wait for a tap to come in to clean up these holes, and then I can get the bell ends on, and we'll go on from there. All right, putting the base on. Alright, so I didn't get enough powder coating on this first part. This was when I just first was experimenting, very first powder coat. I got a very light coat on there, but it's not enough to keep it from rusting. So I will be masking and spray painting this black. It is what it is. So I'll show you guys real quick. Fix that. Wow, I don't know how I made such a big giant mistake. So it turns out that these are 1224. I don't know. I must have been like checked out that day or something. I don't know how I did that. So that's super embarrassing. Here I thought that this took some sort of antique thread. It doesn't. Good thing I only went 1 or 2 threads in. Sheesh. What a moron. So, these are 1224. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. And the thing is, I waited all this time for a tap. Yeah, what am I doing? I waited all this time for a tap, and I just don't know how in the world I had such a big oversight. So these are 1224. I could have got different bolts that I really wanted, but now that these are red and they are what they are. So the whole reason for waiting for the tap was when I powder coated this. I got powder coated in the threads, which is no big deal. I just wanted to chase them and make sure that they were clean before I started assembling this thing. And then I decided to do something crazy and order a tap I didn't need. So I'm a little frustrated and just more embarrassed than anything. I mean, I guess shit happens, so. So maybe this would be a good time for, let me go grab them. Quick story time. Most screwdrivers you buy, automotive screwdrivers, have a tapered head, and I think that's in an attempt to make it fit the most fasteners possible. You can also get what I would call a parallel driver. So this happens to be an Irwin brand. There's a bunch of different sizes on the market. You can get some big ones at Harbor Freight, which I ground down to fit these heads on this thing, the special heads. I'm going to tape this with some blue tape before I drive these on. The difference is these will tend to cock in the, they'll be at a slight angle inside the bit, the screw itself. And in this case, I have painted screws and don't want to chip the paint. And so these will load up on the corners and either wallow out the flat or chip the paint, both of which I don't want. This is a flat bladed, certain thickness driver. I have some off screen that are even larger. These don't fit my impact gun, but because they have a different driving size, but they're big square driving heads, or rectangular. So I'm hoping that by using this with a little tape on it, it won't load up and mark the bit or the fastener as bad as these do. I'm going to use these to just get them in, and then I'll tighten them down with these parallel heads. So quick little story. So the issue I'm having is that there's no paint on this bearing surface, and it came out pretty easy, and it's going in pretty hard. So I'm sure it's just a tight fit. They've got this thing to secure it, but I doubt I can draw it down with that. So I'm just not sure here. And I don't remember what order these washers go in. I thought they were for shimming, but I actually think they're literally for grease retention. And then they've got these spring clips. Alright guys, near as I can tell, the wipers that are right here are just centered with these little rings. This whole assembly that bolts together doesn't actually hold the bearing. So the bearing sort of floats in between these two housings. There's no shoulder. I had to sand that one down because I got powder coat all over it. There's no shoulder, so these bearings float in the housing, and then once you get it centered, side to side, then you tighten down these keepers, and the keepers you're not forcing the motor really tight, you're just causing it to run. Whatever you set for preload on each side is where the shaft's going to want to tend to run. So what I didn't realize is I'm going to need to take these back out right here, and I'm going to need to check my distance from this face right here to the bearing and get them about the same. And then once I get it the same from side to side, then I will go ahead and tighten those they're grease covers, and they also put slight tension on the shaft, so the same amount of tension holds the shaft in the middle. The fit where the bearing goes is what actually keeps it from vibrating radially. So I bought new hardware, which is right here, and that just goes on these keepers right here. And so if you happen to be doing one of these, all that stuff, that shielding is just for grease and dust intrusion. So we'll get to it here. Alright, so I had to run to the store and I had to get some washers and grind them. So these are not just washers, they're shims. And there's a little drive dog here that's now half covered up. Hopefully you guys can see me. Yes, you can. Maybe the top of my head's chopped off. And so what I had to do, I took my Dremel, my little wind Dremel, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but I notched the washers for the little drive dog, the little pin. What I've come up with is this grinder was never meant for a wire wheel. So because the wire wheel's thinner, it places itself, the center line, everything over next to this side of the guard. I think I got something in my eye. And also, as you use it, these fan out. And what they've done over the 20 or so years that we've used this, they've eaten the cast iron away on this face. And so these original spacer drive flanges don't have enough offset. So I'm putting 2 washers behind it so that it'll push it over a little bit and center the wire wheel in the center of the opening. So got 2 of these shims. They look like they make up about 1/8, maybe a little under. Get this, just make sure it's over all the way, because it's wanting to slide out a little bit. Just, oh, you know what, maybe I should put you guys in a different position so you can see what I'm doing. Alright guys, this is me trying to braze. I think I brazed once in high school about 30 some years ago, or 40, so 30 something. Anyways, it's right there. We're gonna just get right into it and see if I can do it. I suck. Holy smokes, I suck. I suck, YouTube. Not near as easy as it looks. So we're at the wiring portion of the grinder build, and so there's a bunch of stuff online. I'm dealing with a 3-phase motor right now, and this has got 3 wires that come out. So But I've read on grinders that there's a possibility these 3 wires that there's a, because it's not 3-phase, it runs on 110, or yeah, 110. And so what I'm thinking is actually going on here is that I've heard or I've read that there's a start winding in the coil, and then there's a run winding in the coil. And I believe these capacitors are start capacitors. I'm pretty sure they are. I don't know why someone wired 2 together. I don't know if one was bad or the total capacitance wasn't enough to start the grinder. I just don't know. So what we're going to do today is we're going to wire these back in the system. As you can see, they're tagged. All the wires are tagged. And then the goal also for today is to get this switch, which you guys can't see. Let me see if I can get it out of there. So this is a Carling 20 amp switch is what it's rated for. Does it have a part number? Yeah, it's rated for 20 amps at 125 volts, horse and a half motor, which is what this is. And if it had a part number on it, I would tell you what it was. But I don't see a number. It says it's made in Mexico. It says 2130, but I don't know that that's the part number. So I'll put it in the description because wherever I ordered it from, I'll do that. So this is rated for 20 amps. So, and then I've got an extension cord, or yeah, a molded cord that I got probably off a computer, or I don't know what it's off of, but it's fairly flexible, and I believe it'll work just fine for this. I'm going to get ends on it. And I'm hoping to get a cord relief. I may have to run to Ace, or I think here it's Hubbard's, but I may have to run to one of those places to get a cord relief for this. So I'm going to check. I've also got the screw-on cord release. I don't like those as much, but I would say that over time it seems like the nice rubber cord reliefs always crack right where they pass through the component. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do there yet, but we'll get started. We'll get some wiring done, and Bob's your uncle. All right, so what we got going on here, we got C, which originally went to here, and now it's going down to something I can unplug. This old wire's corroded, so I'm going to put some aux guard, from house wiring on there, hopefully keep the corrosion from spreading. I don't want to cut this because there's not much of it left, so we're going to run with it. And then I went ahead and I'm using a connector that's too big for the gauge wire, but it fits over this old insulation, and so what I don't want to do is have the insulation sticking out. So we'll go ahead and, again, we're going to roll with that. So put a little bit of aux guard in there. Just make this so it's anti-corrosive. And we'll go ahead and get this crimped. And I got some, I pulled a we'll talk about that in a minute. So, got this crimped, give it a little tug, and then this is going to the switch, and then, let's see, we're going to go straight onto this. Yeah, we'll get that orientated in a second. And then our other black wire is going to go to the, so we're talking about before, you're going to interrupt the black. You're going to interrupt your hot wire, which cuts all the rest of this off. Now, capacitors need to be discharged. They can still hurt you bad. but if we do it black to black, that cuts everything inside the machine, where interrupting the neutral cuts everything from the neutral into the machine. So we're going to interrupt the black. We'll get some, that's way too long. So we'll cut this down. And I got a little stray hair there. Okay, and then we'll get this crimped on there. I don't want any of these wires feeding down beside it. Come on. All right. So we'll get this crimped on real quick. Yikes. My tennis elbow. It's killing me. So we'll interrupt the black here, and then for now we're just to test this setup, I'm just gonna wire nut the neutral together, which I know is not ideal, but it's gonna work for now, just to get the test set up. And ground, what are we gonna use for ground temporarily? Sorry guys, I'm just looking for a quick way to ground this. Well, I want it to go to one of those mounting bolts, so we'll let me get you guys around so you can see up in there. We're gonna go to one of these mounting bolts right here, so we'll get that set up. All right, so capacitors may be charged. Don't really want to have an electrical experience. Switches off, neutrals wired together, hot's interrupted, it's grounded up inside of here. So back to what I was saying. So grounded, switched, all of the A leads that were labeled together, C lead, which was this, ground, neutrals tied to one side of the motor, hot's being interrupted. So I already plugged it in and I know that it's got power, so we will test it out real quick. So here we go. And you can see it dims the lights. It's definitely got a lot of pull. So, all right, switch works. All this stuff is wired correctly. We'll get it unplugged, get the grommet in the back, get this switch mounted, and get this stuff all tucked up in here. Alright guys, this is the outro to the video. I'm not sure where I left off last time because it's been a while since I got this thing up, or it took a while to get it finally running. So I still have an issue with the stone. It's not trued up. I don't know if it's the stone itself or it may not be centered on the shaft perfectly, so I gotta check that. But I powder coated everything black and I painted the center section red. And in case you're wondering, this is a Thor 1.5-horse grinder made by the Thor pneumatic company. I believe it's probably a 40s, 50s grinder, somewhere in there. I added this flex light and we'll kind of go over that, and we'll just take a look at the grinder. Added a power switch and then put some stainless steel under it to keep the sparks from going into the countertop here. So I'll take you guys off there and we'll take a look at it real quick. So you guys can see the grinder. It's got all new hardware. you can see everything's cast, so this cover here tightens down on a shaft that's machined into these bell ends here. I took this thing all the way down. Hopefully you'll be able to see that in other parts of the video. Bought a new 80 grit or 60 grit wheel right here. Let's see. Like I said, put new hardware on it. Some of the things that I struggled with, I didn't quite get the shaft centered. So on these grinders, the shaft is a floating shaft, and if you took one apart you'd understand, but basically the only thing that keeps the shaft from moving is the interference between the bearings and the shaft itself, and then some dust keepers and a shoulder, but it can move around a little bit. And so I've got the shaft too far to the right. If you guys are looking at me, it's too far this way. And so you can see that because you can see how close it is on this side versus that side. There's a little more space. And I got it fairly centered, but I had to do some magic. There's a washer inside of here to space this out properly. And if you're wondering how I got a light on here, so I ordered this desk light from Amazon, and then so you can see on this one there's these two tapped holes. Well, I've just got those bolted in. You can see down inside of there the clip, they're bolted down. I drilled a hole in the clip, and there's one back there. And so you can see I just clamped the switch in right there, and so it allows me to, and it's got different colors, which isn't wonderful, but that's the one I prefer to use. So you can see the lights right there, and it's just a bendable light, so you can put it on your work. And here's the nameplate. And that's that. And then I just had this stainless steel, and it already had holes in it, so I just countersunk them, and that just provides some protection from the material that's coming out the bottom there. All right, guys, so that's it for the grinder. We'll put it into use here in the shop. If you have one of these old Thor grinders or any old grinder, they're typically a lot nicer and a lot better than the new grinders they offer. I looked at some industrial jet grinders. Horse and a half was like, I want to say it was like $1,200 for a grinder. And so if you ever find one of these at an auction, they're well worth restoring. They're worth painting. They're worth reconditioning the bearings or getting new ones. They're a great grinder. Maybe I'll start it up and let you guys hear it. You can hear the imbalance in the wheel here, but it's a quiet grinder. So yeah, if you get a chance to restore one of these, I would highly recommend it. Gets new hardware for it. It's going to make a lifetime grinder. So as always, I hope this helps somebody. This one was kind of more of an entertaining video, so talk to you guys on the next one.